Good evening. This is John Kozlowski and Stacy Johnson.
We want to wish a warm welcome to all of our listeners tonight on Sports Weekly. We are very excited for this week's show as it covers a topic that has proven to be extremely controversial recently.
The topic of this week's show is whether NCAA athletes should be required to gain a degree from a college or university prior to being eligible to compete in professional athletic associations.
And here today we have multiple athletes, some in favor of and some opposed to, changing the way the professional sports world works. John will be conducting interviews and also will be bringing in well-known researchers of related subjects in order to provide more evidence in favor of this case.
Now we have former NBA player Brandon Rohr on the show. So Brandon, tell me a little bit about your basketball career.
Well, after high school, I decided to play basketball at the University of Washington, where I really improved my game. I had a good time, but also graduated with a degree in American Ethnic Studies.
What motivated you to choose this as your major?
I honestly came in thinking that I would play for 3 years, then declare for the draft, but decided to stay so I could finish out my career with the Huskies.
That was a really big decision and one that I'm sure you've been pleased with. Tell me about your injury.
Well, it was between the 2008 season and the start of the 2011 season. I had many issues with my cartilage in my knees, and in 2011, I couldn't bear it any longer. I decided to retire, but came back and played the 2012 season with Minnesota before retiring for good.
Given that your NBA career was cut short, how important was it that you earned your degree?
Well, I honestly don't know where I will be without my degree. I certainly wouldn't be nearly as informed as I am today without it. Even though my career was cut short, I have been able to be smart with my finances due to the classes I took in college.
What would a rule requiring athletes to get a degree before going professional mean to you?
It would just be a step in the right direction. The professional leagues don't actually care about us. They just want us for the publicity. The better the young players do, the more money they make. If this rule was put in place, these young kids wouldn't get in the league and blow all their money and end up on the side of the road if they got injured.
Well, Brendan, I want to thank you for your time with us today. Your opinion is sure to make a difference in the decision the NBA is making.
I appreciate you having me on the show.
Next up on the show, we have basketball star John Wall. John, welcome to the show. To start off, why don't you tell us a little about your basketball career?
Well, for the first year, I played at the University of Kentucky. That's the only year that I had to play in college. After that, I was drafted first overall in the 2010 NBA draft by the Washington Wizards. And ever since then, that's just who I've been playing with.
How'd you handle it being so young and getting into the league with all that money right away?
Well, growing up, I didn't have no money, So, I mean, the signing bonus, as soon as I got it, I went all out. I bought my mom a nice house, a nice car, and I bought me a nice house, of course.
Do you think you would have been better off if you stayed for all 4 years of college?
Nah, because honestly, I would have spent all that money anyway.
So you're saying you aren't in favor of the proposal to require NCAA athletes to get a degree before going pro?
Yeah, I just don't see the point. I mean, if you got the skills to go to the league right after your freshman year, why not go start making some money?
Well, obviously your mind was not fully developed and your maturity was not ready for the adult world because of your spending habits.
I mean, whatever you say, I guess. That's just how I am, though. I spend money like that even if I was 50.
We believe and would like to propose the idea that if you've completed your 4 years at Kentucky and gained your degree, that you would have been ready for the real world and able to hand decisions more wisely.
I mean, you're probably right, but I mean, that's just how I am, man.
Have I changed your mind? Do you wish you would have gotten your degree before competing at the professional level?
Yeah, you changed my mind a little bit, I guess.
So now we will go to Dr. Elliot Pellman, a well-noted neurologist, to talk about the physical and mental development of young athletes. Thanks for coming in, Dr. Pellman.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get to it. A lot of talented athletes feel the need to get to the professional level as fast as possible for fear of getting injured while still in college. What would you recommend to someone with this mindset?
Well, going pro fast can help you pay the immediate bills, but it's not the best decision in the long run. A lot of people claim that athletes need to go to the pros as early as they can so that they don't get hurt in college, but in reality, they're a lot more likely to get hurt if they go pro at a young age. The level of conditioning and skill necessary for success as a professional athlete can result in athletes that are less prone to injury than younger, less talented, or well-conditioned individuals. An athlete might be talented enough to compete in the NFL or NBA or NHL, but odds are when they're entering the league, they have not yet had a lot of conditioning to condition themselves to the level that is necessary to be a professional athlete. And the younger that an athlete is, the less developed their body is, which can only increase the risk for injury.
Okay, that is a fair point. But say that an athlete is a freak of nature and is talented enough and conditioned enough to compete in a professional setting. What would you then recommend to them?
Well, even if an athlete is physically mature enough to compete as a professional, Athletics isn't all physical. There's a mental side of athletics as well. Once an athlete becomes pro, they start to earn a lot of money in a short amount of time. Someone in their late teens or early 20s most likely doesn't have a lot of financial experience and has not had a lot of schooling to where they would know a lot about financing and the economy. It can be scary as an 18-year-old athlete to go from having all their expense paid by the athletic department to having to become completely independent and still compete to their fullest athletically. In addition, they also have an image to start taking care of. They'll be exposed to even more press and media, and some athletes aren't mature enough to handle this attention and can act out, painting a bad picture for themselves. A tragic common occurrence is when athletes come into a lot of signing money and like to spend it all in a short amount of time, whether that includes buying a house, a car, clothes, whatever it is. It can start to add up. Then say they get hurt or cut for whatever reason, or their professional career just doesn't end up working. Then they're not on a roster anymore, and they have spent a lot of their money and are in a sticky situation.
Well, you make quite the argument, Doc. Thanks again for coming and talking with us.
Absolutely. The pleasure was all mine.
And that concludes this week's episode of Sports Weekly. We hope you enjoyed this topic, as it is one that is very controversial.
As you can see, this topic is one that some athletes agree with, while others choose to see things from a different perspective. This podcast will be used in court to show the professional associations that athletes are not prepared for professional competition until they have graduated from college with a degree.
We hope that this podcast gave you a look into the possible future of athletics in the United States.